welcome to the Purlsbeforethyme knitting podcast. I'm Elise. So it is July and it is really warm today, which is really lovely and nice because it's been raining for a while. I've had a really nice week since last time because my yarn arrived for the test knit that I mentioned, and I've had so much fun getting on with that. It's been just really fun to start something new, and it's a pattern that's all in brioche. I'm not going to share too much about the details of this pattern because it's a bit different to other patterns and the designer wants to keep a little bit under wraps, but I will share with you like a little look at the initial bit I've started, which is that this is the sleeve and it is in brioche stitch, and I haven't worked brioche in a long time, so I thought it would be fun to talk all about brioche and everything that I've made in brioche, and then also give a little guide on, like, if you're a beginner, what patterns to go for, I would recommend for brioche, and then a little bit more advanced brioche patterns, and then so intermediate patterns and then advanced patterns, and then if you're really into it, like where to go from there with brioche, because brioche is like a whole subsection of knitting that is very addictive, and it's very different to just normal knitting because you end up with kind of like a double layer of fabric. So I'll just start with the beginning. What is brioche knitting? So brioche knitting is where you end up working fabric where you have alternating slip stitches where you slip and yarn over, and then you will knit or purl a stitch. So you only actually work half your stitches each time you do a pass, which is what it's called with the yarn. And then you can work it in the round, or you can work it flat, and you can work with multiple colors. So you can really build on brioche, and it ends up with this really like beautiful dense textured fabric. So I can show you a few examples of things that I've made. So the easiest one to see the sort of texture with what I mean by brioche stitch is my September jacket by Petite Knit. This is all over brioche. So it is worked both flat and in the round, but you start working flat. And you can see here you have these columns of like knit stitches, and it kind of looks like a fisherman's rib, but it's not a fisherman's rib because it's actually like two layers. So this is the one side, but then the other side looks the same. So you end up with this kind of double-sided fabric that's really thick, and that's why this jacket is so warm, is because you don't just have, the fact that it's, two mohair strands and a strand of merino held together. You actually have this sort of double thickness fabric. So you end up with this really like squishy, warm piece of clothing, which is really nice. And it also has this lovely drape, and so anyway, I'm not going to explain how to do brioche. That's not the purpose of this video. This is just a sort of source of inspiration and show off all the things that I've made in brioche. And then if you want to go and make yourself, there are many, many wonderful YouTube videos showing all the different types of brioche and how to do them. So that's, this is just the basic brioche stitch. But there are variations of brioche stitch as well. So, for example, I've got a piece here. So if you just work in like the columns where you knit one, then you slip one, when you turn around, you knit the ones that you've slipped, and then you slip the ones that you knit on the previous row. Then you end up with these columns of knit stitches. Whereas if you kind of stagger them, so you do it in a different way, you end up with what's called honeycomb brioche. And this is a little headband I designed and made in honeycomb brioche. So you can see the center section here. This is all honeycomb brioche. And then I have these little crocheted braids on the side. So this is a little headband I made. It's one of my first knit designs. It's quite cute. I don't know. I haven't worn it in a long time, but yeah, I just really enjoyed honeycomb brioche. I decided to design something with it. So that's the honeycomb brioche stitch. And then I've got a few other variations that I can show you. So this is a sweater by Sari Norlund called the Edgar sweater, which is this beautiful thing. And here the whole yoke is all in brioche stitch, with these just like classic brioche increases down. It's kind of like a circular yoke, so it's done evenly all the way around. It's not a raglan. So yeah, you just do these like classic brioche increase and decreases. The thing with brioche increases is you don't ever increase by just one stitch. You always have to increase by two because it's alternating. So you have to, every time you increase for like a knit on one side, you have to increase on the other side. So the most typical increase is one of the sort of knit in, knit the stitch, don't slip the yarn off, then you do a yarn over and then you knit back in. So a KYOK stitch. So that's this. This is a very nice cozy pattern. And then I have a swatch that I made from a scarf that has been gifted. It is the M2 scarf by Helge Isager, and this is the swatch. So this is kind of brioche worked flat, but with like increases in the middle, and then a little tassel on the end. So if you can imagine, the scarf was just like a bigger version of this. And then I have a beautiful, this is a Sarah Norland pattern, but I don't remember the name of it. I will put it on screen. But this is a 2-color brioche beret. The 2 colors aren't so different. The main color is a sort of greyish color, and then the other color is a very sort of pale minty green mohair, and this is a beret. And my thing with berets is I just hang them on the wall. So I'm going to hang this one up as well. But this is also in 2-color brioche, and it's like really nice and squishy. So those are just some examples to show you what I've made with brioche. And I have, oh, this is a whip in brioche that is really fun, but I need to concentrate to work on it. And this is the Flying Foxtails shawl by Stephen West, and there are some very big designers in the brioche world, and Stephen West is definitely one of them. And the other one who's very famous is Nancy Marchant. So they both have a lot of patterns, and Nancy has a lot of publications, like books, with a lot of brioche inspiration and cool techniques. So they are kind of, you know, not the founders of the technique, but they're definitely, you know, people who have pushed these methods forwards and helped them spread around a lot more. So this is a 2-color brioche shawl, and what's fun with 2-color brioche is you'll have like a main color on one side, but then that'll become the background color on the other side. So I got this beautiful yarn from Hedgehog Fibers in the shade Squid, and I really wanted to just show it off in a shawl. So this is the beginning of this shawl. And then the contrast color is just white. So if you look on the other side, the white is the main color, and then the sort of beautiful inky rainbow ends up on the fading into the background. But this is really fun. I've already made mistakes on this, and the thing with brioche is I find it quite hard to fix mistakes. Like dropping stitches like several rows down is a little bit trickier than with normal knitting, so I tend not to do that because I'm lazy, and I think the only person who's going to notice is me. Anyway, that is all the little pieces I've got to show you, but we'll take this off now. But I'm going to just sort of go through some pattern recommendations for different levels of brioche. So firstly, if you just want to try getting into brioche stitch and you don't want to make a huge amount of it, so not like a whole big thing, I would really recommend the honey clutch or the honey bucket bag by Petite Knit, and that just gets you a little bit of the fabric, and then you can make it into a bag or a clutch, and it's not a very big piece, and you haven't committed fully to like a whole garment with it. So I think those are beautiful patterns. I haven't made them myself, but I think they're very sweet. And then the M2 scarf, the one I showed the little grey swatch for, this is a pattern by Helge Isager. It's in 1-color brioche. It's just got 2 different colors held together, so that's why it looks like it has 2 colors, but it's just one. And that will just get you doing brioche knits, and it's flat, so you're only knitting if you're doing this. You're not doing any brioche purls, so that kind of helps. And then you're just doing basic increases on one side and then decreases on the other side, and there's a big section just worked in kind of flat brioche in the middle. So those 2 I think are quite nice. And then if you want to invest and do a bit of a bigger pattern, but still beginner level brioche, nothing overly complicated, I would recommend the September jacket by Petite Knit. And then there's a beautiful pattern that I haven't made, and you could make it in 1 or 2 colors, but if you're just making a 1 color version, I would recommend the Sunray sweater by Selena Düring, which is a really nice sweater because what happens is the brioche columns just become like further and further apart, so like spreading rays like the sun, and I think that's a really beautiful feature. I don't see any brioche increases in that pattern. There might be some hidden away, but it looks like all she does is increase the needle size or something somewhere along the line, so they just spread out a bit more, and I think that's a really neat technique. I like it very much. And then obviously the Edgar pullover, I would class this as a beginner brioche pattern. When I say beginner brioche, I do not mean beginner at knitting. So I am assuming you are like a competent knitter at this point and that you're getting into brioche. Whereas like if you're just getting into knitting, I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting straight into brioche. It can be a bit confusing. If you aren't really able to read knitting confidently, it can be much harder to find where you are, pick up stitches, all that kind of thing. So I'm assuming at this point some level of knitting experience. So, but I think this is very beautiful and it's worked in the round, so you will have to do some brioche knits and brioche purls, but it's nothing too difficult. And when you get into the swing of things, it's pretty straightforward. So that's this one. And it's also not the whole garment. The rest is in stockinette. So once you've done the yoke, yeah, that's all the brioche you need to do. And then for intermediate patterns. So the first brioche pattern I ever made is a scarf that I gave away. And honestly, it was a very ambitious pattern. It's a free pattern, I think, on Ravelry, and it's beautiful. It's called the Brioche Basics, but Basics is spelt with an X on the end instead of a C, by Susanna Summer. And it's this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous scarf where you use 2 colors, and then the I-cord, there's an I-cord edge all the way around that frames the scarf really beautifully. And the I-cord is 2 colors and the brioche is in 2 colors. So it's just this really, really, really stunning scarf. And then in the scarf, there's these like X patterns in it. So you have like an X at either end. And this was my first ever brioche pattern and my first ever I-cord pattern. So I just remember rewatching tutorials a lot and then starting over a few times but I was so determined to get the scarf done, and I did. It has a few small mistakes in it, but overall I'm really pleased with it. This is I'll show you my version. I think it's a really, really stunning pattern and makes a great gift. So that gives you brioche knits, brioche purls, 2 color brioche, increases, decreases, making them lean out one way, casting off, casting on, all that kind of thing. So that's a really nice pattern. Highly recommend that one. Then I also really like the Brioche-licious shawl by Andrew Mowry, which is a shawl in that it has 2 color brioche details. So yeah, I would class sort of 2 color brioche patterns as more intermediate because you're dealing with 2 colors and you're not and then you have to sort of keep track of where you are a little bit more. So that's a bit harder sometimes, but it's really, really beautiful. And then the third pattern I would say is intermediate that I really adore is the Favo sweater by Fiber Tales. I've nearly cast this on several times. It is a wonderful sort of cable sweater with these like braids and then the sleeves. So in a cable sweater where you'd normally have like sections of moss stitch or seed stitch and the sleeves and then on the sides, all of this sweater is all in honeycomb brioche, and it's really, really sweet and just like a little bit whimsical. And so I think that's a really lovely detail on that sweater. So yeah, I really like Fiber Tales' combination of techniques in most of her patterns. So I think she has a very nice eye for textures that look really beautiful together. So I think the Favo sweater is very, very beautiful. So I'd recommend that. And then advanced, I would say this Flying Foxtails is more of an advanced brioche pattern because you have very big increases like this where you're making like I think 8 new stitches in one, and then you have all these decrease sections on the sides, and like I've definitely made counting mistakes in this, so I think they're a little bit uneven in places. They don't look exactly how they should, but I'm making it work and forcing it to work for me. And then, oh, I have another pattern that I really like, which is from issue 15 of Land magazine. It was from, I don't know what year it is, autumn 2022. But this design is a scarf called the Noxolis scarf, and it is by a designer called Yigit Can Vatan Sever, but on Instagram it's called Perfido Knits. And they designed this really wonderful 6-color brioche scarf, so you don't work all the colors at the same time, but it's like this kind of gradient, what's the word? Gradation of colors. And in addition, there's these little details where you have little sort of leafy details in as well. So it's just, for me, I feel like if you turned like Farrell knitting into brioche, you'd get something like this, because you're only really using 2 colors at a time in a lot of Farrell knitting. And yeah, but you're just doing it in brioche, and then you kind of get these beautiful textures and patterns that happen at the same time. So this is a really, really beautiful scarf, and I really want to make it one day if I ever were to get through my enormous list of things that I like. And then finally on my advanced pattern list, I put the Brioche sweater by Stephen West, which is also a very beautiful sweater. It's only in 1 color, but it incorporates so many techniques, not just brioche, but like other more complicated stitches. I've never made it, but it looks so fun. It's like this jigsaw puzzle of different texture stitch elements, and I think that's a really wonderful pattern. And then if you really want to delve much deeper into sort of beyond just brioche, I would really recommend the book Tuck Stitches by Nancy Marchant. I was really lucky enough to go to a workshop with her last year at a knitting festival here locally. She came and gave 2 workshops, one on woven knitting, which was full very quickly, so I didn't get on that one, but then she did one on tuck stitches, and I knew kind of that tuck stitches were like something to do with brioche, but I didn't know exactly how they were related. But anyway, what tuck stitches are is when you take, so in brioche what you do is you do a lot of knitting where you like slip a stitch and then you yarn over. And tuck stitches is just taking that one step further. So instead of knitting or purling that stitch in the next pass, you just keep slipping it and doing another yarn over. And then you build up these yarn overs. And then, especially if you do it in 2 colors, you get these really interesting patterns. And the fabric you get is double-sided, but with really different looks on each side. So I have a little swatch here that I made at this workshop, and like hopefully you can see a little bit how. So this is 2 different types of tuck stitches. So I've got this one here at the top and this one here at the bottom, and then so they look like this on one side, but then on the other side they look like this. So I think they are so beautiful. They have a lot of like texture. In some ways they remind me a little bit of like bubble stitches. You know, when you like knit in the one below, or like in like 3 stitches below, and then you undo them and you knit, and then you get these little pockets that stick out. There's something a bit reminiscent on this side of the fabric of that, but it's also very reminiscent of like Moroccan tiles and things like that. So I think these are just beautiful. And this entire book is just variations of this, and so I won't show you too much, but yeah, it's like just instructions for different variations of these tuck stitches with swatches of like the one side and the other side. And I think this is just such a beautiful source of inspiration. So yeah, this is I think one of them I tried, this quadruple one here. So I just think this book is so gorgeous, but it, you know, does require a bit of concentration to get into. It's not something you just sit down and do. You need the like, oh, what row am I on? Am I working flat or in the round? What do I need to do? So it is definitely a whole nother level of brioche. And then she has these beautiful patterns in the back, suggestions, and they are mostly just 2-color scarves and things and some cowls. But anyway, this is really, really nice. This book is actually no longer in print, but it is, the copies that do still exist are available on Amazon, so that's where I got mine. Yeah, run and get. This is like, if you're really into detailed brioche stitching and trying that, I would really recommend this book. It's so stunning. Nancy even said that all these swatches were ones that she made herself, and all the pictures are pieces of knitting that she put in the photocopy machine. So I think that was a sweet anecdote about this book. So anyway, I'm going to, for the next few weeks, just keep going with my beautiful apple green brioche cardigan that I'm going to be doing. I think I'm going to, on Instagram, there's a really wonderful account called Stitch Witchcraft. If you don't know that account, it's one of my favorites. I've forgotten her name, but she is a photographer, or I don't know if she is a photographer, but she is very good at photography, and she is very good with words, and all the captions on her posts are very thoughtful and well put together and eloquent. And she's running a little 2024 cardigan knit along, so I'm going to participate on Instagram with this cardigan because I think it's my first cardigan this year, and I don't know if I'm going to make another one. But yes, I am very pleased with my little piece of brioche, and yeah, that's everything from me. But if you have experience with brioche, or even if you don't, have you got any brioche patterns that you really like? I really like hearing about what patterns you guys enjoy, and like in other videos, for example, like my sleeve to sleeve one, it was really fun going through looking at everyone's favorite sleeve to sleeve patterns. I added those all to the pattern bundle as well at the end because I was just so inspired. So yeah, if you have any patterns that you love in brioche or don't like in brioche, like, share all your thoughts. I really like reading all your thoughts. So yeah, that's everything I had to say on brioche. Yes, so thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye!